In 1887, Henning Hammarlund built Sweden's first pocket watch factory in Svängsta, a small village in the Blekinge region beside the Murvall River. He named it Halda Urfabriken, AB. Halda's watches won gold medals at world fairs in Chicago in 1893, Stockholm in 1897, and Paris in 1912. 34 years later, a former Halda employee named Carl August Borgström bought Halda's machines and started his own company on the same riverbank. He called it AB Urfabriken. It made watches. Carl August Borgström started AB Urfabriken in 1921 with 17,000 krona. He bought the machines directly from the shuttered Halda factory and moved them into an old chapel building on Holländarevägen, the same street, the same river, the same village. The name he chose told the whole story. AB stood for August Borgström. Urfabriken was Swedish for watch factory. Together, ABU's first products were telephone timers called the teller. One of ABU's first clients for the teller was LM Ericsson, the company that would eventually become one of the largest telecommunications corporations on Earth. In 1926, ABU added taximeters to its product line, building meters for horse wagons and taxicabs across Sweden. Carl August died in 1934 at the age of 63. His son Göte, then 30 years old, took over the company. Göte was not just a businessman, he was a fisherman. The Murvall River ran directly outside the factory walls, and Göte had grown up fishing it. By 1939, Göte and his engineer, Stig Svensson, had spent 5 years developing a new taximeter. The Record taximeter Model 39 was the lightest and most compact on the market. That same year, Germany invaded Poland. World War II reached Sweden's economy in September 1939. Within weeks, European trade collapsed. Taximeter exports, the product Göte had spent 5 years perfecting, stopped completely. ABU had 18 years of precision manufacturing behind it. The machines were still running. The craftsmen still showed up every morning. The factory on Holländarevägen had not changed. What had changed was that nobody needed taximeters anymore. Göte Borgström made a decision in 1940. He would not wait for the war to end. ABU would change what it built. He did not choose fishing reels randomly. Göte had fished the Murvall River his entire life. His father, Carl August, had hand-built a simple reel for fishing that same river years earlier. Göte understood fishing tackle the way a watchmaker understands a movement, by feel, by function, by what was missing. What was missing, in Göte's assessment, was precision. The reels available to Swedish anglers in 1940 were crude compared to what a factory full of watchmakers could produce. Göte bought several of the most popular American bait casting reels on the market and took them apart on his workbench. He studied each one. He noted what worked. He noted what did not. Then he set ABU's craftsmen to work building something better. In 1941, AB Urfabriken introduced its first fishing reel. It was called the ABU Record. The Record was built to the same tolerances ABU had used for 2 decades to build watch gears and taximeter mechanisms. It was not a hobby product. It was a precision instrument that happened to be designed for fishing. The ABU Record sold. It proved the concept, but Göte was already thinking past it. The problem Göte was turning over in his mind was casting. Specifically, the problem every angler in the world faced in 1941 when using a bait casting reel: backlash. When a bait casting reel's spool spun faster than the line leaving it, the line piled up and tangled into what anglers called a bird's nest. Clearing a bird's nest could take 10 minutes. It happened to beginners constantly and to experienced anglers regularly. Every reel manufacturer in the world had accepted it as an unavoidable feature of bait casting. Göte did not accept it, did not. In 1949, Göte Borgström hired an engineer named AB Murvall. Murvall's title was production manager and construction manager. His real function was to solve problems that no one else had solved. Murvall was not a fisherman. That was deliberate. Göte needed someone who would approach the reel as an engineering problem, not as a fishing tradition. Göte provided the fishing knowledge, every cast, every tangle, every frustration he had accumulated over decades on the Morum. Murvall provided the mechanical solutions. Together, they began work on a reel that had never existed before. Together, they would rebuild how casting worked. Between 1949 and 1951, Göte and Murvall worked through the core engineering challenge. A bait casting reel spool needed to spin freely during a cast to achieve distance, but a freely spinning spool with no governing mechanism would always outrun the line. The solution Murvall engineered was a centrifugal brake, a set of small brake blocks inside the spool that used centrifugal force to automatically slow the spool as it accelerated, preventing it from spinning faster than the outgoing line. No production reel in the world had combined a centrifugal brake with a free-running spool and a level wind mechanism in a single unit. A level wind mechanism was a guide that moved back and forth across the spool automatically during retrieval, laying the line evenly so it would cast cleanly on the next throw. Level wind. The combination of all three systems in one compact, anodized aluminum body was the engineering breakthrough. By May 1951, the first physical test reels existed. 5 were produced that month, 1 in each of 5 colors. The first prototypes. By October and November of the same year, 60 more prototype reels had been built, 20 in red, 20 in green, and 20 in black. The color decision was not cosmetic. Every other reel on the market in 1951 was either nickel-plated or chrome-plated. Both finishes were silver. The new reel was made from anodized aluminum, which meant for the first time in the history of fishing reels, color was a manufacturing option. Göte understood this was a marketing opportunity unlike anything the industry had seen. In August 1952, Göte took the finished reel to Stockholm. The venue was the St. Erik's Fair, one of Sweden's largest consumer exhibitions. Visitors to the ABU stand were shown 3 versions of the reel, red, black and green. They were asked to vote for their preferred colour. Black won the vote. Göte had already decided on red. He had fallen in love with it during the prototype phase. No other bait casting reel in the world was red. Every reel on the market was silver. A red reel on a Swedish salmon river would be impossible to miss and impossible to forget. Red went into production. A magazine advertisement placed in late 1952 carried the headline, "Technical Perfection, the Ambassadeur from Svängsta." The reel was priced at 150 krona, a significant sum at the time, equivalent to roughly several days of wages for a Swedish factory worker. It was ready for delivery by Christmas 1952. It first appeared in the Tight Lines fishing catalogue in 1953 under the full name, the Record Ambassadeur. The Record Ambassadeur was the world's first fishing reel to combine 3 technologies in a single unit: a free-running spool, a level wind mechanism, and a centrifugal brake. The anodized aluminum body was lighter than any chrome or nickel-plated reel on the market. The push-button free spool release allowed an angler to disengage the spool with a single thumb press before a cast, then re-engage it automatically on the first turn of the handle. These were not incremental improvements. They were new features that the fishing world had not had before. Göte had built a reel that made the act of casting easier, more accurate, and more consistent for every angler who held one, from the most experienced salmon fisherman on the Morum to someone picking up a rod for the first time. By 1954, the reel was selling in Sweden, but Göte knew the reel market was elsewhere. In 1954, Göte's son, Lennart Borgström, joined ABU as export manager. He was 24 years old. His job was to take the Ambassadeur to the world. That same year, Göte and Lennart travelled to the United States for the first time. Their destination was Chicago. They stayed at the Conrad Hilton Hotel, where the American Fishing Tackle Manufacturers Association known as AFTMA, held its annual trade show. The AFTMA Show was the single most important gathering in the American fishing tackle industry. Every major buyer, distributor, and retailer in the country attended. Göte did not speak English, not a word. Lennart handled every conversation. He stood at the ABU display and explained the Ambassadeur's features to American buyers: the centrifugal brake, the level wind, the push-button-free spool, the anodized aluminum body, and the red finish that no other reel in the room shared. Göte stood beside him and demonstrated. He cast the reel, he let buyers hold it. He smiled, and he let the reel speak in the language he did not have. At that show, the Ambassadeur 5000 cost $45. In 1954, $45 represented roughly a week's wages for an average American worker. It was not a cheap reel. The buyers did not care. The reel cast further, more accurately, and with fewer tangles than anything else on the table. The Americans loved it. One buyer at that show was a representative from a New Jersey-based fishing tackle distributor called the Garcia Corporation, formerly known as Charles Garcia and Company of New York City. Garcia was the largest sporting goods distributor in the United States. A deal was not struck immediately. Garcia's leadership initially showed limited interest. That would not last long. By 1956, Garcia had recognized what it had passed on at the AFTMA show. A new agreement was reached. Garcia became the exclusive ABU distributor for the entire United States market. Garcia catalogued the Ambassadeur for the first time in its 1957 trade catalogue. A small factory beside a river in a Swedish village of several hundred people was now supplying the biggest fishing tackle distributor in America. The Ambassadeur 5000 was about to reach every tackle shop, every sporting goods store, and every serious angler in the United States. By 1956, the Ambassadeur was selling across the United States through Garcia's distribution network. ABU's factory on Holländarevägen was running at a pace Carl August Borgström could not have imagined when he moved his watchmaking machines into that old chapel in 1921. But Göte Borgström was not finished building. In 1955, ABU introduced its first spinning reel. It was called the ABU 444. A spinning reel operates differently from a bait casting reel. The spool stays fixed during a cast, and the line peels off the front of the spool, rather than unwinding from a rotating drum. The ABU 44 gave ABU a product for anglers who preferred spinning over bait casting, which was a significant portion of the global market. In 1956, ABU introduced the ABUmatic. The ABUmatic was a spin cast reel, a design that enclosed the spool inside a cone-shaped cover with a single push-button release. Spin cast reels were simpler to operate than either bait casters or spinning reels, which made them popular with beginners and casual anglers. ABU built its version with the same precision tolerances it applied to every product that left the Svängsta factory. The ABUmatic also became the subject of one of the most deliberate traps in the history of industrial manufacturing. By the late 1950s, ABU's products were being copied. Manufacturers in other countries, most notably Japan, were producing near identical versions of ABU reels and selling them at lower prices. ABU's legal team needed a way to prove copying in court, but proving that a competitor had copied a design required evidence that went beyond visual similarity. Murvall's engineering team provided that evidence in advance. During the development of the ABUmatic, a small hole had been drilled into the prototype housing to secure the spool during testing. When the final production design was completed, the spool was secured by a different method. The hole was no longer needed. It served no mechanical function on the finished reel. Murvall left the hole in. When Japanese copies of the ABUmatic appeared on the market, they included the hole. A hole with no mechanical purpose, present in both the original and the copy, was proof in court that the design had been directly duplicated. ABU used that evidence successfully. The non-functional hole had done exactly what Murvall intended it to do. In 1963, the first Japanese copies of the Ambassadeur itself appeared. By that point, the Ambassadeur had been on the market for 11 years. It had been copied because it was worth copying. In 1965, ABU introduced the Cardinal spinning reel series. The Cardinal became one of the most celebrated spinning reels ever produced. In the early 1970s, dedicated carp anglers across Europe, including some of the sport's most prominent figures, adopted the Cardinal 55 as their reel of choice, citing its drag system and overall build quality as unmatched at the time. At some point during ABU's years of growth, the company received recognition that no distributor agreement or trade show appearance could provide. ABU was awarded a Swedish Royal Warrant. The formal title was Kunglig Hovleverantor, purveyors to the Court of Sweden. The warrant was granted by the Swedish royal family in recognition of the company's quality and craftsmanship. It entitled ABU to display the royal seal on its products. A factory that had started by making telephone timers and taximeters was now the official fishing tackle supplier to the Swedish Crown. In May 1974, Göte Borgström died. He had taken a failing taximeter company in the middle of a world war and turned it into the most respected fishing reel manufacturer on Earth. The Ambassadeur had been in production for 22 years at the time of his death. It was being sold on every continent where people fished. His son Lennart Borgström, who had stood beside him at the Conrad Hilton Hotel in Chicago in 1954 and translated his father's demonstrations into English, now carried the company forward. The Ambassadeur kept selling. New models followed the original. The 5000 series expanded. The 6000 series was introduced. Each new model retained the core engineering that Göte and AB Murvall had developed in Svängsta: the centrifugal brake, the level wind, the free-running spool, the anodized aluminum body. By 1980, the relationship between ABU and the Garcia Corporation had deepened beyond a distribution agreement. Garcia had been ABU's exclusive American distributor since 1956. In 1980, ABU Svängsta acquired the New Jersey-based Garcia Tackle Company outright. The two names that had been linked since the 1950s were now a single company. In 1984, the name became official. The company was formally renamed Abu Garcia, the brand name that anglers around the world now recognize on every reel, every rod, and every piece of tackle, was the product of that 1984 renaming, itself the product of a 1980 acquisition, itself the product of a distribution deal struck in 1956 at a trade show in Chicago, itself the product of a red reel built by a watchmaker's son in a village beside a Swedish river. By the mid-1980s, the factory on Holländarevägen in Svängsta had produced millions of reels. The exact cumulative total, counted across the full history of the factory, would eventually reach 33 million. But the business was changing around Abu Garcia in ways that the Borgström family had not faced before. Through the late 1980s and into the early 1990s, Abu Garcia faced compounding financial pressure. The Swedish tax system placed heavy burdens on manufacturing companies. Global competition from Asian reel manufacturers, the same manufacturers ABU had been fighting in court since the 1960s, had matured into legitimate competition, producing quality products at significantly lower cost. Abu Garcia was losing ground commercially, even as its reputation remained intact. By the mid-1990s, the options had narrowed to two. Abu Garcia could cease operations entirely, ending 74 years of continuous manufacturing on Holländarevägen. Or it could accept acquisition by a larger corporation that had the capital to sustain it. In 1995, Abu Garcia became part of the Outdoor Technologies Group. In 2000, Outdoor Technologies Group changed its name to Pure Fishing. Under Pure Fishing, Abu Garcia was placed alongside a portfolio of brands that grew to include Berkeley, Penn, Shakespeare, Fluger, Mitchell, and Fenwick. Pure Fishing became one of the largest fishing tackle conglomerates in the world. In April 2007, the Jarden Corporation acquired Pure Fishing. In December 2015, Newell Rubbermaid acquired Jarden Corporation. In November 2018, Newell Rubbermaid sold Pure Fishing to Sycamore Partners, a private equity firm based in New York City. Abu Garcia had passed through 4 different ownership structures in 23 years. Each transaction was larger than the one before it. Each one moved the company's ownership further from Svängsta. The factory on Holländarevägen kept running through every transaction. In 1991, the Svängsta factory introduced automated assembly for the Ambassadeur handle side plate. A series of machines now produced the component at a speed and consistency that manual assembly could not match. That automation was the specific reason the Svängsta factory could continue operating after Abu Garcia's manufacturing shifted increasingly to Asia. Without it, the cost differential would have made the Swedish factory impossible to justify. Today, most Abu Garcia reels are manufactured in China and Korea. The cost economics of global manufacturing made the shift inevitable. But one reel line has never left Svängsta. The Ambassadeur, the reel Göte Borgström, and AK Murvall designed between 1949 and 1952 in a converted chapel beside the Murvall River, is still built on Holländarevägen. Collector's editions, custom models, the C3 and C4 series, up to size 6500, all of them still come from the same address. The factory that opened in 1921 has been in continuous operation for over 100 years. When John Wayne was introduced to Lennart Borgström at a marina in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, he grabbed a chair, sat down next to Lennart, and told him he could not believe it, and that he had to have a dozen of those. He was talking about the Ambassadeur, a Hollywood actor with a converted US Navy minesweeper, as his private vessel owned 12 of them. Lennart Borgström asked about the durability of the Ambassadeur late in his life, said he did not know of anyone who had really worn one out. You cannot wear out an Ambassadeur, you can wear it in. In 2013, Abu Garcia commissioned a documentary about its own history. The film was called For Life, the story of Abu Garcia. It was shot across 14 locations, from Sweden to the United States, and featured perspectives from 13 individuals. The Swedish phrase in the film's original title was Allting går igen, which translates to everything comes round. The factory on Holländarevägen still stands. The Murvall River still runs beside it. Over 33 million reels have been made inside that building, the same building where Carl August Borgström set up his watchmaking machines in 1921, in a village that cost 800 krona to build a factory in. Beside a river, his grandson would spend a lifetime fishing. If this story earned your time, subscribe and give this video a like. It helps more people find stories like this one.